guys, so today we're doing a video with Mr.PhilosophicalBrony. It's coffee with Mr.PhilosophicalBrony. And today's topics is going to be on Tulpas, which Mr.PhilosophicalBrony has spent how many hours making yours?
Going on plus 14 steady forcing, you know, like the actual meditated stuff, and then just what's considered like light forcing, probably going on days for there.
Beautiful. So, the tulpa is an ancient Tibetan practice of creating basically a forced hallucination. So, what would be likened to an imaginary friend. So,
yes.
You want to give us the lowdown on them?
Well, like an imaginary friend is correct, but it's on the next level. Imagine having, like, your best friend live in your mind, because you're not controlling what they think or do. They do that by themselves, and how this is possible is what you're doing is like unlocking your subconscious. Like, imagine talking to a dream character, because in your dreams you can talk to your subconscious that way. It's kind of like that concept, but actively and consciously doing it whenever you feel like. And tulpa will develop however they want once they reach the point of sentience when you're trying to force them into existence.
Interesting. So, what's your tulpa's name?
Xena, spelled with an X.
Yeah. And you've experienced some what you believe to be sentience with yours, eh?
Yes. Nothing as far as speech, which is the main indicator, but when you're visualizing, oftentimes you go into the theta wave brain state, like deep meditation. This is where dreams happen in this state. Well, you go into like this, some call it a wonderland or a mindscape, just wherever your imagination runs in that state of mind. While going through that, just walking, pointing out things. Like I was pointing up at the clouds. Well, I wasn't physically making her do anything, and she turned and smiled at me, just like she did that. And that kind of caught me off guard because I wasn't expecting her to do anything at that point. So that was one very early sign. And then going off of that, all these further experiences that I've had tulpa forcing were, she basically acts intelligently based on what I do in the mindscape / wonderland, whatever you want to refer to it as. Nothing as far as speech, but actions sort of speak louder than words, you know?
Most definitely. So, do you think that this has the possibility of becoming something, going from a happy, enjoyable experience to something a lot more sinister?
It can for some people, but for me, I really don't think so, because unique thing about me is that I'm very, very content with life, very just living life as an experience, and I don't really get down on myself or feelings wise, and that has a role to do. Like, if you feed your tulpa fear and things, it'll start to fear you, and you'll start to fear it, and it might do things to scare you. But if you're in like a constant state of like love and happiness, there's nothing that can go wrong with your tulpa, because fear is like the opposite of love, and if that's all you give it and all you really feel anymore, I don't think there's anything that could ever possibly go wrong. Plus, a thing you have to know about tulpas is studies have shown from the many people who have made them, they like to exist. So they know in order to exist, their creator, host person has to exist as well and be happy in a state of mind where they can be paid attention to. So it's very rare when you find a tulpa that like is hostile towards its creator.
I did a quick little research about something like that, and you can how to get rid of your tulpa is you like forget it, I guess, is basically you just try and forget it, but upon remembering them, they can be brought back into existence.
Yes, and there's a lot of apprehension as far as that goes, like, because the process of eliminating a tulpa is very, very, well, if you were to be in the tulpa's place, it's a very, very, very bad way to die, because it's like a state of existence where you want to die, but you can't, and when you're forgetting them and you just don't pay them any attention, what happens to them is, theoretically, they're existing in like a
limbo
corner of your mind, not strong enough to do anything or interact with you or anything until you like focus on them again. But there has been cases like this one guy, he forgot about his for like a year and a half, and then he remembered him again. And this time it was different, because it's different for different people, but he made a tulpa of Lewis, the character Lewis from Left 4 Dead. and Lewis is just like, hey, did I miss anything? And it was all fine and dandy there, but I have heard other stories where it's just a really bad experience. Some can completely forget and never remember again, too.
So the advantage of having a tulpa is you're accessing, or your tulpa is your subconscious mind, so interacting with it is accessing your subconscious. So do you think there's a possibility of using your tulpa to access hidden memories or thoughts of yours, or is it because it's a sentient being that you wouldn't be able to have things like that?
Well, it's a twist on those two ideas. Because since it has access to all these things, it can do that, but it's really up to the tulpa because it's sentient. So, because I've heard of stories where, like, you could ask it to do something and it'll say, like, no, that sounds too hard. Or, no, I don't feel like doing that. But at the same time, sometimes you don't even have to ask it. They'll just do that for you. Like, I've heard stories where a person is just doing math homework while they're talking to their tulpa. They just, like, look over there, like, that's that. Yeah, that's 42.6. And they can math crank and things like that, or they can remember sentences down to the dot. But the neat thing about tulpas is there's also another form. It's kind of like a step backwards from a tulpa. It's called a servitor, and it's basically, you can access all your memories and special mathematical abilities that your subconscious possesses without the sentience, because you basically go through all the same steps, but you never really develop their personality at all. And that's what a servitor is. That's really the only difference, as far as I know. They're not independent or anything, and you can just use them as a bridge into your subconscious.
Interesting. So now we know a little bit more about tulpas, capabilities and things. Another thing too, they can possess people as one, or something along the lines. I don't know if you'd want to use possess as, you know, probably the best word, but
yeah, people, when they think about possession, they, like, first thing you think of is like ghosts. Well, it's kind of like that, but you're letting them. You're like, here, use my arm, and they do. Because a lot of times what the person will do is, like, if you're playing a video game, I've heard of this, the tulpa controls the left hand, whatever that purpose is, maybe it's like walking or something on the keyboard, and then you control, like, aiming and movement with the right hand mouse or something. If you're game, we're like right and left hand on a controller, same difference. Some people, like this one guy, said, you know, you're a master at possession when you buy a new game and you let your tulpa play it on the hardest difficulty and they beat it.
it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So what are the basic steps then for creating a tulpa? Because I'm pretty sure somebody here is going to be interested in that.
Oh dear. Well, it's not an easy feat, but don't be downhearted either, because you can pursue it simply if you are determined. So there's guides that give you a general idea, but it's different for every person. You kind of have to feel it out a little bit, because you know how your mind works better than anyone else. Some of the basic guides, what I can give you is, first, think of some personality traits that you want the tulpa to have, like what they will be like whenever you interact. Write them out on a piece of paper, and then think about each one for like 15 to 20 minutes. Kind of think about the emotions that go along with the traits. Think about it in your head, and kind of like amass them all into a being. Just think of it as the being that you're giving the traits to, because that'll be your tulpa. And once you do that, then you can also visualize whatever body or form you want them to take. And their tulpa can be anything, because this is all in your mind, so there's no limitation as far as physical-wise. I've heard of people having normal human tulpas. I've heard of them having pony tulpas. I've heard of tigers, wolves, dragons.
Crazy animals.
Things you'd only see on LSD, stuff like that. Just anything your mind can manage. But know this, once the tulpa is sentient, they have a tendency to change based on what they like or think represents them better. They also change their name quite often. I wouldn't be surprised if Xena became sentient and she's like, that's a sucky name, and she picks something else.
Yeah, I'd probably change her name to something epic like 123 ABC Kick Ass.
Yeah, and then I'll get super confused whenever we have Skype conversations.
Alright, beautiful. Well, thank you, Mr. Philosophical Brony. We're just past the 11-minute point, so that is all the time we have for today's coffee.
Alright, well.
But next week, we'll check up on how your sentient being is doing and probably have a new conversation, new discussion.
Yes, I look forward to it.
Most definitely. Well, thank you very much, my good friend, and I'll talk to you soon.
Laters.